There she is. You've seen the picture, you've heard all about her, and she lives right here in my community and has been an activist her whole life, as were her parents. Emily, thank you so much for talking to me today. There's a lot of questions I've got for you, but mostly I just want to tell you how amazing I think it is what you've done, not only in that moment, but your entire life with your work as a social worker and a therapist, but obviously with your activism. It's really inspiring. And it looks like you're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I just want to start with a moment of gratefulness for all that you are.
Oh, thank you, Pete. That's really nice to hear, especially today.
Why today? How are you feeling?
First of all, I'm okay physically, totally. This is very exhausting, though, I have to tell you. When you go viral overnight, people decide who you are and what you are. So I'm absorbing that as people project onto me who they are and what they think I represent. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak for myself.
Who you are is the daughter of two activists. Your father got accidentally famous because he was protesting while a student at Syracuse University and then was arrested and became the subject of a Supreme Court case, a famous one about speech. Your dad was Feiner. He was a World War II veteran and an activist. Why, first of all, did your dad stand up for, I think in this case, it was black folks in Syracuse, where, by the way, I grew up. Why did your dad care so much about marginalized communities in, I think that was 1949, 10 years before you were born, right? When he was arrested as a student?
Yes. So my dad grew up poor in Harlem and then later the Bronx, a Jewish kid. He knew what oppression was. He knew what bigotry was. He knew what poverty was. And he lied about his age to join the army to go kill Nazis. And when he got to Europe, he saw a lot of terrible things. He went through the camps after they were liberated. He was not the first wave, but he did see the aftermath of that. He got spit on by German prisoners of war because he was Jewish. And when he left, my grandmother gave him a chai to wear around his neck. And when the German POWs saw it, they spit on him. And so he went and he saved the world from fascism and came back to America and demobbed down in the South. And they put him on a train up to the North. And it was really hot. And he saw a velvet curtain around several seats on the train. And he wondered what was back behind that. And he pulled back the curtain and saw a Black family sweating to death in this train who were segregated from the rest of the train based on their color. And he said, I didn't go to defeat fascism halfway around the world to come back and see it here. And he decided to throw down for civil rights.
Particularly black folks in America.
Absolutely. He
You
was a
yourself,
member of the Henry Wallace Youth Young Progressive Party. And so they were also involved with actions for workers' rights, for women's rights. But yeah, Black civil rights was a big deal for my dad.
where has your dad, Irv Feiner, where has his story been told accurately, in your opinion, somewhere that people could read more about, learn more about him? Because I learned about him in just a little bit of research before talking to you, but I wasn't sure if there was an official history of his work, his activism, his life.
It's being written now by Roy Gutterman, who is I believe he's the director of the Tully Center for Free Speech up at Syracuse University. But there's been other stuff written about him but it's piecemeal,
Yeah.
but nothing that I could point you to.
I could talk a lot about what happened at the Supreme Court and what his life meant to you. And maybe we can continue this conversation because your dad's life was so fascinating. But I want to ask you about your mom and then ask you, obviously, about your work. So tell me a little bit about mom, because maybe she was a little overshadowed by your dad's Supreme Court case, but apparently she was also an activist. Both of your parents were. And you told me that growing up, you didn't have a traditional weekend.
No. No, while other kids went and saw baseball games or went flying kites with their families, I went to marches to end the Vietnam War, marches in support of civil rights, that May Day parades, Labor Day parades, working for workers' rights. Mom grew up in a family where she was the daughter of two activists. Her mother was blacklisted. She was a opera singer and she was blacklisted because of her political beliefs. She was very active in supporting the Lincoln Brigade, the group of American soldiers who went to fight to try to keep the fascists out of Spain. So she lost her job. Mom grew up in that family, seeing her mother punished for her political beliefs. And mom was elected president of the student body at Queens College as an open communist. She was a member of the CPUSA in the 40s and the 50s. She was marching in front of the White House to try to stop the execution of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. When that happened, she was on the Mall and heard Martin Luther King deliver his I Have a Dream speech, as was, by the way, my husband's mother. So my children have two grandmothers who were on the Mall to hear Martin Luther King deliver his
Wow,
iconic
that is
speech.
wild.
My mother organized the buses. His mother got on the bus, but they didn't know each other until we started seeing each other.
I think people that listen to your story as I am right now make assumptions and jump to conclusions as to why you are who you are, why you do what you do, why you believe and think what you think. And I wonder how you feel about people putting their assumptions on you about what you probably think, because I think people might be surprised, for example, about your career and how you've spent your life and how you've dedicated so much of your time to helping organizations and groups like veterans. You worked at the New Jersey Veterans Administration, helping treat veterans who came back from Iraq and Afghanistan with all types of trauma. You have done a lot of work with trauma victims throughout your career. How do you describe why you believe what you believe and connect it to the work that you've done to combat assumptions that people might make, having heard some of your story or even some of your opinions, or even just watching you get carried out? This woman, this age, gets carried out. I got one piece of information about her and now I've decided who she is.
Wow. You know the saying, I contain multitudes.
Yeah, you
Uh,
do. You do.
Yeah, and we all do. One thing is for sure, and that is that my political beliefs are not, they don't come into the consultation room with me, right? So I've treated all kinds of people, and I believe in the basic humanity of people. And I believe all people deserve to be treated with respect and with dignity. And all people have their own struggle. We don't know what it is. So we've got to listen and we have to learn. I was honored to work with our veterans. It was some of the most meaningful work I've ever done, and I'm really passionate about it. And I volunteer now and help veterans all the time get access to services. I help their family members get access to services. These are people who, in the case of Iraq and Afghanistan, volunteered. It was an all volunteer army,
Right.
and they put everything on the line. And I feel really strongly that we owe them for that.
Yes.
And today's military who volunteers, it's often people who have no other path to higher education. It's often people who need to escape really bad home lives. It's people who come from families with military histories and they're really proud of that and they want to carry it on. And it's people who were moved by 9/11. And I
And
respect
people
all
who
of
can't
that.
afford college tuition and the military helps them pay for it. That's a huge percentage I've heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So a big part of what I did was help people negotiate the GI Bill, quite frankly. When I did case management kind of work, people would get frustrated, and I can help work those systems, and I do that.
Real quickly, what have you heard or what are your thoughts on specifically cuts to the VA that you've heard and veterans losing their jobs through Elon Musk's run Doge in these first 100 days? Do you have any stories, anecdotes, thoughts, friends, colleagues, opinions on the VA situation?
It's so many, I don't even know where to start. When I speak with my friends who are still at VA, what they tell me is it's never been worse than this. And they are so frustrated because this is a group of tremendously talented and committed people, and they want to help veterans. Over 50% of the employees at VA are veterans themselves. So, one instance is the fact that VA, we never had enough therapists to provide the care that the veterans needed. And so they ramped up hiring. They hired a bunch of people. And with the advent of telehealth, that made it so that they could hire therapists who could provide therapy via telehealth from their homes. And we could ramp up to meet the needs of the veteran population. And Doge had this crazy idea to demand that they all come into a VA medical center.
Not great.
So they took 10 therapists and put them in one room and told them to do telehealth. There's no confidentiality.
Oh
I
God,
can't do
terrible,
therapy when I hear the person over the barrier doing therapy with somebody else.
horrible.
That's
That's horrible.
crazy. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Okay, that's a nightmare anecdote, but still an important one. And these details don't get reported, so many of them, because there's so many details. Going back to the larger issue, there you were at Mike Lawler's town hall the other night. I was there the week before in a similar situation. And I wonder how you see how we got here. And I could go to talk about New York State and the county that you grew up in, that I've lived in for 20 years, but that's not as interesting as what I want your opinion on the national picture of how we've got here, given the fact that your entire life have been influenced by what's happening in culture and politics and government. You could never feign ignorance or apathy because of how you grew up. You've seen it all, is my question. What do you think about the moment that we're in, and that you're the one that we've been waiting for?
Oh boy, I hope I'm not the one we've been waiting for. Really, that's a heavy burden. I think that we lost the thread, that we lost. I think this country has never been perfect. Our original sin was slavery. Probably our original sin was genocide against the
Yeah,
indigenous people
start
who were here.
start there. Yeah.
I think we were on a path where we were constantly moving forward, constantly trying to get better, constantly trying to live up to the promise of our Constitution and the wonderful Bill of Rights that came after it. And we lost the thread somewhere after World War II, maybe. In my lifetime, I really think about the damage that the Reagan administration did, and how it set us back, how a man could go to Philadelphia, Mississippi, and talk about states' rights and be elected. That said a lot.
When people say Reagan, I always jump to, in his case, the narrative that he was able to create, which was similar to, I guess, Margaret Thatcher's and others, where government was the problem, not the
Government is the enemy.
government is the enemy. And I feel like that, combined with a lack of accountability for everything from the Vietnam War to Nixon to my lifetime, the financial crisis, the Iraq war before it, climate, like no accountability. Government is the enemy. And then I feel like the final third part of the catalyst telling that got us here is right-wing media. The fact that media became unregulated. You could say whatever you wanted to say on AM radio, then on Fox News, now on the internet and podcasts. So now you
And
can
the scapegoating,
and the skate. Go ahead. What do you mean by that?
scapegoating of immigrants, scapegoating of people who are unable to support themselves for whatever reason, by dint of disability or economic
Bootstraps. The whole
bootstraps. That's a
blaming
good way to
people for
put
their
it.
own poverty, and if only they worked harder. And then, of course, the financial crisis, they blame poor Black people for buying homes they couldn't afford. The immigrants are the problem, and that's what you mean by scapegoating. And certainly media did that, and politicians did that. That's how I feel like we got to
Yeah.
2016, to a reality show star becoming who wears
And no real meaningful opposition to that. I think that's part of it too, is that there was no meaningful opposition to that. And I think that
what,
caused a reckoning.
regardless of Trump's candidacy, no meaningful opposition to the larger narrative that we just talked about.
I think both.
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
think both.
Yeah. Trump got elected the first time, there was a resistance immediately. I was in the streets in Washington at the Women's March covering it.
So was
And,
I.
and you were in DC?
I was.
And it was locked. There was no march because there were too many people. There were so many people, and there were marches all over the country.
And
And
I've
then
been to many marches in Washington. That was amazing.
yep, yep. I'd love to just go through the protests that you've attended and what you've seen and what you've witnessed. But I think the question is, what do you make of Trump 2 and the movement for resistance now that you have been a really at the tip of the spear of? Obviously, you've been involved. You've been protesting. I think at the Tesla dealerships as well, right, Emily? You've
Yes,
been
full
involved in all of it.
disclosure, I own and drive a Tesla
And
that I bought in 2019 before I knew what he was. But yeah, so I go to my Tesla takedowns in my Tesla.
my threshold by that, by the way, on that is there's no forgiveness for anybody who owns a Tesla truck. But
Ugh,
my
those
if
things are
I
ugly.
my threshold is, did you buy your Tesla before or after Sig Heil?
And I
Because
well before Zig Heil.
if you
So
saw
I'm in the
Sig
clear.
Heil, if you saw Elon Sig Heil, then bought your Tesla, there's no forgiveness. But pre Sig Heil, I forgive. It was a
Thank
good.
you.
So go ahead. So talk to me about your activism and Trump 1 versus Trump 2 and what you're seeing, what you think is working, not working, is needed, etc.
I think two things. One is I think people were shocked. I think it was like total shock and awe. Like we all read Project 2025, but everybody went, nah, they're not going to do that. That's just so crazy. And then boom, like right out of the gate, they just threw it all up against the wall to see what would stick. And you don't know where to turn. You're like, oh, and
Yeah.
then and then they're arresting judges, right? They're sending US citizens to El Salvador with no due process. I think people are scared. And I think that's what they want. I think they want us all to be silent and to sit down and shut up and be scared of them. I think that's why Mike Lawler has 4 different levels of security at his town hall in Somers, New York, which probably has a crime rate of minus 0.00003. And it it is people are overwhelmed and they're scared and they don't know what to do. And so you have the leadership of the opposition party saying, sit on your hands and wait until he comes down to 40%, and then we'll be able to push back. And of course, that was like not reading the room. And everybody started to push back against that. And I think slowly you saw citizens organizing to do whatever it is that they could do. We had to become our own leaders. I had to refuse to leave that town hall when I was unfairly asked to do so because I knew that's what was right. And I think people, if we look inside, will know what's right.
This is the least important terrible thing about Mike Lawler, but I can't think of another time where I saw somebody go on stage and give speeches in front of a picture of themselves.
He thinks a lot
Literally
of himself.
least important thing, but it says a little bit about what he thinks of himself. So at that town hall, there were hundreds of people. The one I was at in Rockland, there were over 600 people at. Were you at that one as well?
I was not. I was in North Carolina. So that's why I was in Somers.
Fair enough. So I wonder what you think it achieves if we're all in there making noise and not letting him blah, 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 because he talks a lot and doesn't say anything. And I think that frustrates people. Politicians sometimes do that. Sometimes they don't. And they shouldn't at town halls because people don't have patience for it. It's not like a cable news hit. So what do you think like the disruption at these town halls achieves?
I think it communicates the very real anger of the electorate. And I think it communicates the amount of fear we have over what's about to come. If you're like me and you're collecting your Social Security, I need that check. And I still work a little. People need to know that
It's your
the
money, but it's your money.
institutions are going to be there for them.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but it's like when you say I need that check, it's your money. It was you already earned it. Like it's
That's right.
they're just holding on to it for us. And
Yep.
that's a great idea. It's been a wildly successful program. So yeah, that's the fear in your case, and everybody has so many others that they're concerned about. What is the importance of organizing? Like you've been in the protest movement your whole life. Talk to me about why you do it, what you get out of it, and what it means to organize, how you know who to trust and where to go and who to listen to and
Mm.
what do? Any answer to any of that?
I just think it's really important to be a part of a collective. I don't think anything gets done alone in a silo. So organizing for me is about being effective. It's also about learning from other people. And it's about helping other people learn from me about whatever it is I can offer. And I truly believe that until all are free, none are free. So I'm going to join with my immigrant brothers and sisters and my black and brown and yellow brothers and sisters and red. And I am going to join with anybody who's willing to work to make this country and, quite frankly, this world a more peaceful place, a more equitable place, a place that we can continue to live on this planet without destroying it. I care about those things and I can't do that alone. So, yeah, I have to organize and I have to explain to other people why this is important and how they can make a difference. In a million years, I would never have guessed that what happened to me on Sunday night would have happened, and that I would have gotten a chance to be on your podcast or talk to any of the other people I've talked to in the last 24 hours. And you got to seize those moments. I'm just like this normal person who just wasn't going to get up out of her seat because of some arbitrary order by some guy who doesn't want to answer my questions, who's supposed to represent me in Washington. And we can all be that person.
I don't know. I don't know if you're a normal person, but I appreciate that you're trying to appear as such. You've been in the fight your whole life, like I said, and so you've been paying attention. You've been trying to make a difference. It just so happens in that moment, the way it went down, the way they carried you out, the way you held up. What was the peace sign about? Like, how did you have the wherewithal to? You just went limp and held up peace signs, and that was it?
Yeah, I've been asked, was did I have civil disobedience training?
Hmm.
And the the honest answer is not that I recall. Maybe I did. Like when I was protesting American involvement in Nicaragua in the 80s, maybe I did. I don't remember it, but maybe. And I just knew that you're supposed to go limp when they pick you up. And I've been, like I said, the earliest demonstrations I were on were probably anti-war demonstrations. Ever since October 7th, I have been calling out and crying out for peace. I'm I believe in peace. I don't think that we can continue to have endless wars and the opportunity costs of the amount of carnage that's caused in our world every year. I don't believe that the person who could figure out how to cure cancer hasn't been born. I'm sure they have, but they might have starved to death in sub-Saharan Africa or been bombed to death in Yemen. I don't know, but we can't afford to keep killing each other. So I threw up peace signs.
I love everything you said. I think the person that was born to cure cancer is actually about to cure it, and then Elon Musk cut his research.
That, yeah, yep.
I kid, and I don't mean to, because that was a really important, I think, explanation of why you did what you did. What have you heard, Emily, since this? I know you've been inundated with calls and messages on every single platform that you're on, people you know, people you don't know, because I'm guessing in terms of the positive feedback, I'm sure you've had all kinds of insults and attacks. Hopefully it hasn't been too bad, but in terms of the positive feedback, it's a very inspirational thing that you did. Again, you're not one of these people that is seeking attention and trying to build some social media following that you can monetize and a podcast and all the things that a lot of activists do. And I'm not even going to judge it because, hey, good for you. But that's what's happened. That picture, your civil disobedience creates an image, which creates an inspiration, which sparks movement, which sparks the momentum of a movement, which inspires other people your age and certainly I would imagine younger and men. If this older woman is doing this, what am I doing? And with all due respect on your age, but I do think your age matters in this case. And then when people get to learn about you and who you are, I think that matters more. But what have you been hearing, and what do you think that if it's any way possible that you could take yourself out of that, think that picture and that action represents? If somebody else did it, what would you be thinking?
I have been totally bowled over by the messages I've gotten of support. They have been really soothing for me. They've helped me continue on through this day. They have been tremendously kind and generous. People thanking me for my courage, people thanking me for speaking up, people saying, I've always wondered what I would do. I don't know how you did it. Can you tell me? Thank you for speaking up for me. It really, it's been wonderful. I think probably the most negative stuff I've heard has been from my congressperson who has now gone on a publicity tour to paint me as some crazy, literally crazy person who needs help. And
Has he named
so
has he named you?
I saw his clip from Hannity last night. People sent it to me. My husband said, "Why are you watching that?" Um, and I think he just said that woman or this woman. I don't think he names me. It's very clear he's talking about me. He talks about some old social media posts, at least one of which he took out of context. Again, like he doesn't know who I am.
Who
I'm like everybody else. You got to talk to me for a while to figure out who I am.
And that's why I did that. It's exactly why I did it. And as we learned, you contain multitudes. And I think that's such an important lesson before we make these knee-jerk reactions about people based on their past posts or this or that piece of information. Have you just, there's a lot of good candidates running. Have you been working on any specific campaign or even supported the candidate against Michael Lawler?
I have not. I have not. I have.
You're now going to be asked for your endorsement, I bet.
I s- I was a very active Democrat for over 40 years. I held elected office as a Democrat. I was a Democratic committee woman for over 40 years, and I was chair of our local party for a while. And I'm no longer a Democrat. I'm registered no party, so I don't have a vote in the Democratic primary. And I will wait to see what happens and then make a choice. For me, I care about a lot of different issues. And I want to make sure that the person that I vote for most closely aligns with those. I don't expect 100% alignment. I know I'll never get that, but I want to see where the nominee comes out on the things that matter to me.
Finally, what would you say about the importance of doing local activism, your school board, your town, etc.?
So important. People, well, Donald Trump is an anomaly. Most times people come to higher office through lower offices. So right now, my county legislator, Beth Davidson, was on the school board before she was a county legislator. She's now running for Congress. Maybe she'll be my congresswoman. I don't know. That is the step ladder. That's how it works. And so we need to pay attention at all levels, not to mention that probably our largest tax bill comes from our school district. Don't you want to know who's spending those dollars and making those choices? I do. I think we develop leaders on the local level, and they are closest to the people. They're the ones who have their fingers on the pulse. When I was a village trustee in Nyack, I knew everybody's story in this village. And I walked this village year after year, knocking on doors, talking to voters. People who run for Senate don't get a chance to do that. Certainly, when they run for president, they don't get to do that. So when you become active and you let people know you're watching, they listen to you and they want to know what you think.
I guess I have one more question, which is what if you have any kind of driving philosophy in your life? I think you said you're not religious, but you're Jewish ethnically, and you're a scholar. You're a learned, educated woman, not only in the formal way, but in through life. You're a therapist. You understand specifically trauma, both personally and professionally. Told me you lost your 10-year-old. Did you say brother or sister?
My sister was 13 when she died. I was 10.
You were 10 and your sister was 13. Like, you have multitudes. What, if any, is there any kind of driving philosophy or quote or theory or practice that you wake up in the morning and live by or think about that motivates you or inspires you?
Sure. Do good, be good. And every day, especially since Trump was reelected, I wake up and say, I'm just going to do one thing today to be part of the resistance, to push back, to defy. So if maybe that's going to a Tesla takedown, I have this body, I can go and be a person and they can count me. And so I try to show up wherever I can show up. I'm usually out twice a week or so. I don't have to go to work every day. So this is what I do. I make phone calls, I go to meetings and learn about stuff. So that's important to me. But it's also important to me to have some fun. And so one of my favorite quotes is the Emma Goldman quote, "If I can't dance, I don't want to be in your revolution." I love to dance. And I think having fun while you're trying to change the world is a really important piece.
I love it. I love you. I love talking to you. It's really inspiring. And I'm so grateful for your time today and for your leadership and just for being the change that you want to see. It's really exactly what we need right now. And you're out there
Thank
doing
you.
the work. So thank you very much for talking to me, Emily. And if anybody wants to contact you or reach out to you, is there, or is social media, you're on Blue Sky, right?
I am on Blue Sky, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. I don't hide my name, never have. I'm proud of who I am. Sure, reach out. Pete, you have my contact information. Everybody gets their 15 minutes. If this is my 15 minutes, I want to use it.
You are. Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you, Pete.